right, greetings everyone, and welcome to another great episode of Office Pro TV. I'm your host, Daniel Lowry, and in today's episode, we are kicking off our series for Excel Essentials. Try to say that 3 times fast. It's going to be a lot of fun throughout the series, I'm sure. And joining us in the studio to help lend her expertise on that topic and lead us along the way, our good friend, Miss Vaughn Smith. Vaughn, we're glad to have you, and how's it going today?
It's going fantastic. I'm so excited to start off this Excel Essentials.
Yes, hard, right?
I know, right? I had to really think about it. Slow down.
That's right.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we do the file extension for Excel, which is an XLSX.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Tongue twisty.
Yeah, every single letter you have to really think about. So, but yes, we're going to start at the very beginning and just get familiar with Excel. Like, what is Excel? What are we doing with it? What's our setup? What's your setup? And how are we going to really kind of lay the groundwork of what exactly is this series? And so let's go ahead and start. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't go ahead and run the slideshow because I have a couple notes that I'd like to keep for myself and for you guys to know what's going on. So what is it? When we're talking about Excel, we're going to be referring to this as a spreadsheet application because that's exactly what it is. It is a software or a program or an application. All 3 of those words, they all mean the same thing. So Excel is a piece of software that is used to create spreadsheets. And we will be referring to Excel files as workbooks. For example, if we were using Word, we would say that those are documents. If we're using PowerPoint, they would be presentations. In Excel, that is a workbook. So if somebody says, hey, can you go ahead and send me that Excel workbook? Or, hey, can you send me that Excel file? It means the same thing. That's just what we're going to be referring to, these particular files that we will create in Excel. So what do you use Excel for? A whole bunch of stuff. I would think this is probably one of the most widely used Office applications in an office environment. Probably besides Word. Well, now that I say that, Word's just as popular. Maybe Excel too, because no, what did I? No.
Yeah.
Outlook.
Outlook's probably the most popular.
Well,
because everybody's got to have email. Email is mission critical.
That is true, but then I think with all like the Gmails and the Yahoos,
it's true.
a
There's
lot
probably
of
a dent being put in that.
Well, I actually looked this up. Like, what's like the
did?
most popular Office product? And there was all conflicting results. It was like it's either Word or Excel. Or they did say Outlook because of the emailing part of it. But it seems that everybody wants to use Excel, and I think it's one of those like some offices.
Not everybody wants.
well, they would like you, and they kind of force Excel upon you. Like, we're going to put everything in spreadsheets, and they're like, I don't want to use this product.
When you say the word spreadsheet, I think of sitting on my bed with papers everywhere. I mean, going, this goes here, and and I kind of feel that way when I've used Excel in the past. It can be a bit daunting.
Yeah, and a little wonky too,
yes.
Right? and it doesn't behave like with Word. It's like, okay, you type out words on a page and you can make it pretty and you hit enter. I think with the spreadsheet application, it is a different beast. It behaves differently. So I think that's where it throws people off. With Outlook, okay, new message, send, receive. It's maybe a little bit more intuitive. I think with this product, if you're not familiar with using this type of program, it does get a little weird. So what do you use it for? To arrange and analyze data. Okay, we have mailing lists, so we need to go ahead and store everybody's addresses. Well, Excel would be a perfect place to do it because you can use your Excel spreadsheets in a tabular format. You have it arranged in columns and rows, and that's where you go ahead and store your information. And so that's why a lot of people use this, because they want to be able to store that type of data in some type of organized format. And so the other thing that Excel is really good for is calculations and functions. I want to go ahead and total up all my weekly sales. Don't want to do it on a calculator. You go ahead and write different formulas and or functions. They're pretty much the same thing. And you perform calculations in Excel. And there's a lot of different things that you can do within Excel when it comes to crunching those numbers. So that's where people like to use Excel, and you can see of tracking data within an organization where Excel is going to be extremely useful and powerful. And so that's why people go ahead and use it. Now in this series, just to kind of clarify, this particular series is not going to touch anything about calculations because calculations and functions within Excel is so robust and it's such a main part of Excel. I've determined that we are going to break that up into an entirely different show. This show is just concentrated on the fundamentals, getting you started in Excel, and not thinking about adding up things. Okay, let's just get our organization, get our data in there, and know how to work it. So just kind of clarifying the scope of this particular show.
Don't want the good people out there to feel like they're drinking from a fire hose, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think as we go through, because I know you've expressed that, like, you're like, I'm not really an Excel person. I'm like, well, that's perfect. I'm so glad you're going to be hosting with me.
You remember that scene from Ace Ventura 2 when he's afraid of the bat and they put it in his face? He says, "Get it away." That's how I feel about Excel.
Yes, well, hopefully along the way that you might make some discoveries like, hey, that's not so bad. I could do that. So I'm
we'll
here.
You got your work cut out for you, I'll tell you that.
Well, I am here to hopefully demystify this particular program for you. So that being said, the other thing about Excel, and we've kind of talked about this off to the side here, and then we'll probably be talking about this throughout the episodes, is that I think people try to use Excel that it's not supposed to be used for. We talk a lot about databases, and Excel is not a database program, even though a lot of people use Excel like a database. And people think, well, a database is just a place where you store data.
It walks like a duck and talks like a duck. It must be a duck, right?
Yeah, and it kind of is a duck, but
yeah.
it's like a...
It's like a goose that dressed up like a duck and said, "I'm a duck."
I have this picture in my head. It's got like a little hat on.
Yeah,
it's like,
"Hey guys, how's it going?" And they're like, "You're a strange-looking fella."
You are an odd bird. Yeah, exactly. So it can perform a lot of things that a database can do. And when we're talking about functions, there are a whole set of database functions and calculations that you can perform on that. But there is a limitation. Like if you are going to be storing a lot of stuff, you might need to go up one level. And then the other thing is, like, Excel is used to store data, so you probably wouldn't want to create invitations, to a party in Excel. I have had people like I get a printout. I'm like, oh, they're like, I did this in Excel. I'm like, how did you make that happen? So it's very interesting. So try to keep Excel in the Excel box, but it can kind of move around in some other places there. So just wanted to throw that out there. Now this slide that I have here, I've already kind of mentioned this, is a spreadsheet application is going to be composed of columns and rows, and where those rows and columns intersect would be a cell. So everything that we're going to be talking about in Excel will have a cell reference. For example, on this slide right here, you can see that my active cell is going to be cell B3. What is an active cell? It's that green box that's around that particular box or cell, and then you can see the column headings and the row headings. They are highlighted to be able to let you know where you're at. So we'll be talking a lot about navigating our Excel spreadsheets in some of our other episodes, so definitely stay tuned. Now, where is Excel within the Office 365 suite? Yes, this is where you buy a subscription to Office 365 and you will get a variety of different products. Now this is a slide that just has a whole bunch of them on there, and maybe things like InfoPath and Publisher, maybe those are products that you're not as familiar with, and maybe you get a subscription that doesn't even have that within what you're buying. But it is part of it. And you can see the column over here on the left with like Word, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint. Those are going to be your main core Office products. I did throw Access into there. That would be your database program. Now with databases, you also have this whole other thing called relational database design. Like understanding, like, if you're going to build a database, you need to understand the relation of the data to each other. And if you don't set that up right, it's gonna not really work so well. Now that's a whole other product, but I just want to throw that out there. So where is it within the Office suite? Now, of course, you do have different product plans and subscriptions that you can purchase through Office for Office 365, and this is where you can have it for home, business, education. There's also different tiers. You have like small business plans and enterprise licenses. And so there's a lot of different variations on how you can purchase this product through an Office 365 subscription. But, of course, you don't have to buy a subscription to Office 365 to have Excel. You can have it to where you buy a single license that doesn't have any of the updates, and it's not part of this kind of connected Office 365 subscription, and you can still use Excel.
So it's like a la carte.
Yes, yes. And that's, of course, the way that all of these products were sold for the longest time before they went to this subscription model that a lot of your software is going to. And, of course, the benefits of having a subscription is that anytime there's like even a small little change, a little incremental update, that gets pushed out to you, and you go ahead and be able to enjoy all the benefits of those updates. For example, back in the day when you bought Office, or we'll just go with Excel, Excel 2003. The next version wasn't until Excel 2007. So you had to wait that whole amount of time before you could purchase the next version of that software, and then you work with that, and then you have to wait for them to release another iteration of that product to be able to get new features.
Yeah, now as the new features are created, it's rolled out immediately. So one day you're logging into Excel in Office 365 and it looks one way, and the next day you've got a new button. It's like, oh, what does that button do? And where before people got entrenched into this is how Excel works, and now they come up with a completely new version. Everything's moved, it's changed, it's done this, it's that, and it's really hard to help people keep moving on.
Yeah, and speaking of updates, and we have a slide towards the end that talks about this. This happens to me throughout when I'm doing these series, like Word. You remember, I think you were my host, where it's like, okay, they put out an update, and now it's completely different. I have this whole new button, and it's changed something of the way it behaves. It's like, oh, that's great, right in the middle of while I'm filming the show. That's a little difficult. So just kind of knowing that it's a great thing, but it can also be one of those like, all right, well, now I got to go re-record that other one because I have a whole new thing that I need to talk to you guys about.
The old philosophers used to say, you never step into the same river twice with this.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about that, well, do you have Office 365 or do you have a single license or a purchase? Maybe, do they even make them on CDs anymore? I haven't had a CD drive forever, so I have no idea. So you can see that the thing that you do need to become aware of in this particular show, this is where we have a Excel locally installed on our computer. So we have downloaded the software, installed it on our computer, and I do not go online to access Excel. So I just have it right here on the computer. You can just see it right there because I pinned it to my taskbar. And so that's what we're going to be working with. And the local version or the locally installed version of any of your Office products. Oh, you know what? I just realized it says Word. Oh.
It does say Word.
It does. Okay, why don't we go ahead and on the fly, let's go ahead and make
that. You didn't see that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Probably should have done a find and replace on this, because if you've watched any of my other shows.
Word Online is also free, apparently.
Oh, okay. Thank you. There's another one. See, this is a teachable moment to use find and replace.
Right.
Find all instances of Word and change it to Excel, because this is the same PowerPoint I started with Word and just changed it all out, changed the colors and all that good stuff. So if this is familiar, yeah, I do it for I do it for every one of the Office products in my different series. So there we go. But we will be using a locally installed version of this product. And most of the features, so that's where if you're watching the series and you only have access to Excel Online, it won't be the exact same. It actually just happened today with one of the switchers. They're like, oh, I was showing them something about like filtering things in a table, which you'll learn about in maybe not this particular series, but maybe the next one. And I'm like, oh yeah, you can filter by color. I'm like, oh, you're on the online version. Okay, well, in the locally installed version, yeah, you can filter by color. So it's those little things. You'll probably get most of it, but not all of it. All right, next slide. Oh, versions and file types. Yay. All right. I kind of mentioned the whole like going from 2003 to 2007 to where you had like that was the only way that you can purchase the software. Well, now you can see different versions, and I'm always fascinated by icons, and since I do graphic design, you can see like the iterations of all the different icons that you've had throughout the years. And so we're going to be working with files. When you save an Excel file, you'll be saving it as an XLSX file format. Now you can see that they started using this file format back in 2007, and now all the way up until 2017, so for the last 10 years, they've been using this. That X on the end is just in an XML base type, if you want to say, that just expanded the functionality of the files in all of your Office products. You know, DOC versus DOCX, PPT versus PPTX for our different file types here. So if you get an XLS file, that's where it is created back into that particular version, that 2003 and then older would be able to read that particular file type. So they are separate file types. And so if you ever needed to have that compatibility to be able to save this down into that XLS file format, then you just need to make sure you understand that there is a difference and you do a file save as to be able to do that. And we do that throughout the episodes to just kind of reiterate that particular concept, but I like to go ahead and throw that out right here in this particular slide. There's another thing that I have in my show notes. I'm always fascinated with history, like where did this come from. Do you remember Lotus 1-2-3?
I do. I never used it, but I remember it being out and it being taught a lot.
Yeah, I never used it either, but I do know that that was like the
Lotus Notes or whatever it was.
Yeah. The Notes was like the word, and the whole Lotus functionality.
Yeah.
Is that the whole Domino server thing?
Domino was like a web server. No, I'm sorry, not web server, an email server.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was. I think I want to say yes.
Was it connected to Lotus?
It feels like it is. I can't remember. It's been years.
Yeah.
When I say years, I mean over 10.
Yeah, and since we all know each other from long ago, and we would teach this, and that was like, it's always one of those like, well, at least I don't have to build a Domino server, because that was like anybody teaching like the administrative part of that, like the techie side stuff. They're like, that was just.
It was a nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel like it had something to do with Lotus.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't quote us on that one. Yeah. But just kind of going back to where it kind of came, it originally marketed from a multi-plan in 1982 and just talking about the MS-DOS. I also thought it was interesting that it was first released on Macintosh machines.
Really?
Back in 1985, and the first Windows version was in November of 87. So one of those.
That is funny.
Right? I found that fascinating. I'm like, oh, wow, this came out from Mac first and then Windows. So now this is from Wikipedia, so I have the article in here. And everyone's like, well, you should always check your facts
sources,
in Wikipedia. But hey, even if it's half true, I thought that was pretty interesting. So that's where it kind of came from.
Well, they have cited a source there, so
Yeah.
you follow that.
Yeah, I probably should have put that one in there too. But hey, I got the website in there.
There
So,
you go.
but yeah, just kind of knowing where this came from, because people used to use spreadsheets on pen and paper.
That's why I think of sitting in a bed
Yeah.
with sheets, actual spreadsheets spread out all over the place, and you trying to remember what goes where.
Yeah. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that's exactly where we come from. So history, here we go. And now we have on our electronic workbooks, which are composed of worksheets. Now, file types, let's come back over here so I can use my down arrow. And whoops, let's go ahead and bring our notes down. And here, showing extensions, that whole what type of file do I have? I'm a big fan of this, being able to see it, because if you see your little list right here, if you do not have file extensions shown, you're just seeing it as the file name. As opposed to if I have the file extensions turned on, I can tell a difference of, hey, this is a CSV file. This is an XLSX file. This is an old version. This is a DOC or DOCX. So I love to show extensions, and I always like to tell people about how to do that. And so this is what this slide is about. Now, in your File Explorer, just when you go down here to like viewing your files, you can use that ribbon up on the top there, that there are check boxes off to the right-hand side where you can show file name extensions. Now, the thing is, when you start doing this, I like it, but do be very careful, and I have this in my notes. Careful when renaming files. Do not remove or delete extensions or anything past that period for that file extension, because file extensions tell your computer, hey, this is what program to open this in. So if you change that, it can get kind of messed up.
It gets real fun, especially for the people that you call. That would be me. And I'm like, is it supposed to open with Adobe Acrobat and look all jumbled like this? No, that's why I called you. What does it normally open with? I don't know.
Those are
Great, neither do I.
yeah, and that's where it's like, look at the icon. What color is the icon?
Yeah.
You know, that was one of like somebody that worked at a help desk would always ask. They would always say like, what does the color of the what's the icon? Oh, okay, well that's a whole other story
Yeah.
too. But yeah, the green, and then that way it understands it needs to be associated with Excel, and so that's where changing that file type when you rename it can cause some problems. So don't do anything past that dot if you have file extensions. And that's where sometimes people like just don't even turn them on.
Yeah, Windows by default hides file extensions, so you would have had to have turned that on to be able to chop that off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I like it, but just keeping it as don't do this. But some people it's like, let's just not even, let's just avoid that altogether.
Yeah.
Let's just not turn it on. All right, let's see. What else do I have going on here? Oh, all right. So we're almost done. Our setup to let you guys know what I am going to be teaching this series from. I have an Office 365 Pro Plus account. It is going to be locally installed on a Windows 10 Pro 64-bit operating system. Do take note that I am teaching from a virtual machine on a Macintosh computer, so I have both operating systems. Sometimes virtual machines, anything in a virtual machine can get a little weird every once in a while, and it's one of those like, it's supposed to work like this, but I think because of this environment, it can throw that off a little bit. Now your setup, what do you know, how do you know what type of account that you have? Like how did I know that I have an Office 365 Pro Plus account? Because any of your programs, now this could be Excel, what is this, PowerPoint, Word, any of them, if you go to your file and go to account, it will tell you, here I'll actually show you, if I go to file and I go to account, you can see right over here that this is a particular version of Office that I have in my subscription. There's also something in here that you should probably notice, that this version, this build number, that makes a big difference. And right now I'm on a current channel, and that's what it means by how my updates are treated. There is a current channel, there's like, I have a PDF that'll let you know, but there are two ways that you can get your updates. It's like every month or every 4 months. And I can't remember the specific names, but you'll see in just a second. So I have it to where it updates every month, and that's why I might be in the middle of a series and they throw out an update. My build number changes, and then it throws me off a little bit. It can, like I said, it can kind of mess you up a little bit. And so watch your build numbers and see like, oh, I bet you that's why yours looks a little different than mine. Or the other thing that can come into play is that subscription versions. Like I said, we're on an enterprise license. And an enterprise license, I think we're on E5. Like I think we're like the highest level what we can do, because we have to teach all of this stuff on the admin stuff. Like Ronnie teaches Office 365 for the techie people. I probably have different things available to me than somebody that has like a personal like home version of Excel. Now you're like, well, is it that different? It's going to be slight, but I mean, I've even had occurrences where we're all on Office 365 here, but my coworker who is not on an E5 subscription, he doesn't have the same options as me. I'm like, how do you not, what? The only thing that I can hypothesize is that it's got to be that I'm on an enterprise and he's not. And it's one of those, I'm just going to go with that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Right?
There's so many different flavors of these things, and it's those parts. And I'll sit there and for hours like search the Oracle, the internet, and like, why is this? And here's my build number, and it's so new that there's like no documentation on it. So that's something that it could happen. Might not always, but just throwing that out there. And so if you have an older version, if you are on 2013, it shouldn't make those between 2013 and 16, 17, there's not a massive difference. So you should have most everything that I have. But of course, then you're not on a 365 subscription. So maybe you won't have everything. Yeah. Wow, I just like totally contradicted myself. But just be aware that that is a possibility. And then talking about those software updates, I have this PDF, and this is included in the show notes, to where current channel, deferred channel, that's the other name right there. So you can see that you can change this to which type of scheduling that you have for your updates. And then I have where you go online to your actual account, you go into the admin section, and then go into your download settings, and then that's where you can change your update scheduling. Now this is because I have access to this account because I am like the admin on the account. But I'm saying that it is possible that you might not have access to this area because of how your organization has their software set up, like your whole network. You might not be able to, because there's parts of it where you can lock this down to end users. Like you as an end user will not be able to change this particular feature, and that this meaning any, like XYZ type feature. So if you're like, I can't get to this, then it's probably because they set it to where they don't want you messing with this and that your IT department has that control, and as an end user you don't. So got to keep everybody on the same track on a network. You know all about that.
I do.
So yep, and that goes ahead and finishes up my slide presentation. Like I said, just getting us started, getting us familiar of what we're going to be talking about throughout this whole series, and just like what is Excel altogether, and what our setup is, and how we're going to proceed with learning about Excel. So stay tuned.
All right. Well, Vaughn, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to learn about Excel, and I'm wishing you the best in teaching me, because I've had trouble throughout my life with Excel. Me and Excel don't really get along that well, but I think that you might have the magic key to make that happen. So I really look forward to this series. Hopefully you do as well. It looks like a lot of fun. So definitely join us throughout this. Learn about Excel. It's something commonly used in many businesses. So in the lowest common denominator, you're going to have a great skill that's going to help you out in your day-to-day life. Vaughn, thanks for joining us again. We do thank our audience for watching, but it is that time for us to sign off for Office Pro TV. I've been your host, Daniel Lowry.
And I'm Vaughn Smith.
And we'll see you next time.